Welcome to Home Gym History, produced by Garage Gym Radio. My name is Rob, and if you're enjoying strength history and physical culture, you're loving this podcast, well then I thank you, and I also encourage you to come over to Vintage Weights PGH, my account on Instagram and YouTube, where you can learn even more. But for now, stay tuned, because I have a really great episode all about the history of the Cable Pulley Machine, which I'm just going to warn you up front. You're going to want to see the images on this episode. So listeners, if you're just listening, you might want to, save it till time you can watch, because I've got some cool stuff to show you. And I have a great guest who has some recent innovations with the Cable Pulley Machine, Jason from Surplus Strength. Welcome, Jason.
Thanks for having me on, Rob.
Absolutely. So I was blessed and fortunate to get a UPS, a Universal Pulley System, about 7 months ago. And it didn't take long. It was like within a week, I was using that sucker left, right, up and down, all kinds of different uses. And I've been hooking up like grip implements to it to try out weird stuff. I've been using, my belt fed strength attachment. I've been using all kinds of stuff. And it's really, listeners, the way I describe it, I'm going to hand it over to Jason to tell me, the modern history of it as a modern history maker in just a second. But the way I describe it is this. Let me show you. I got my old system that is this like made in who knows where piece of crap that I got from Amazon for about $30, maybe $40. And I thought I was getting like a steal of a deal. I was like, man, look at this. What a great day. I'm going to add some pulley cable action to my small home gym. And it was like the first time I used that piece of crap, I, no lie, just bashed my shins with the weight. It started swinging. It was all over the place. And boom, it hit my shins. And I thought, what the heck am I doing wrong? Like, what is this? And then shortly thereafter, you came along and I started hearing about the Universal Pulley System. So tell me a little bit about that, Jason. So that was the flagship. That was the start of Surplus Strength, right?
Yeah. So actually, Surplus Strength as a concept and as a brand started before that. It was my training business. It was kind of a modality. It was just a thought to always train to have more than you need for yourself so that you could share it with others. We talk about living a life of surplus here, and that's what we mean by that. But I was going to open a commercial gym in 2019 with a couple other personal trainers. Most of us were functional movement specialists, so we were doing a lot of athletes, specialized sports, and doing a lot of rehab for people who had issues, injuries, and the whatnot. In 2019, I think it was November, we had found a building we were going to move into. It was going to be X amount of dollars and 5-year lease. And okay. And we just couldn't get the lease right. So like God kept saying no. And so I was like, okay, I got this money saved up. I told my wife, I was like, we're redoing the garage. It's going full bore. So insulated door, outside door, air conditioning unit. And then like 3 months later, all the gyms shut down.
Oof.
And I still had a viable business, because I could keep it clean and keep time in between people and keep it safe for everyone.
Yeah.
And it just kind of worked out that way, because in March of that year, it didn't take long at all. Maybe in March or April, I was having the same predicament that you were. Yeah. I had a Spud Inc. pulley system. So I ended up buying 2 of those, which was like $230, right? Yeah. And I rigged up my spotter arm off of my crossmember because I had a 100-inch RM6.
And that was a lot better quality than my Amazon knockoffs.
It did not work terrible if you had the weight at the end of the spotter arm. So it was a weight
there you go.
Cross members and all that stuff, right? So I could get inside the rack and do at least like tricep extensions and some basic movements. But that setup with the spotter arm, I was like, that's so easy. Like, why hasn't someone just come up with that?
Yeah.
And so I did some research and I found the Slinger online and Rep Solution at the time. And it just wasn't a good fix for me. And so I went to my buddy's garage and we started slapping pieces of metal together. And I actually have the prototype that we built in his garage if y'all want to see it.
Heck yeah. So let's see the first UPS. So this is the Universal Pulley System.
This is it. So you can see it's changed quite a bit. There was no channel. It's all separate flat pieces of metal. Nothing's formed. I actually cut these holes on a drill press.
Nice.
And, I cut these on a bandsaw and
Wow.
used a die grinder to round out the corners and stuff. It had a 3.5-inch pulley because it's just what we got.
Yeah.
I don't even know. We actually do have decent spacers in there. We must have
viewers
some
up
tubes.
over Jason's left shoulder, you can see the current model.
Yeah.
A lot more refined, but I mean, the general concept is pretty much the same.
Yeah. Basically what we were doing is trying to create separation, separation from the rack and the end user, right? Get a better line of pull because, I mean, honestly, like if your cable's at an angle, you're doing a different exercise. You're not doing a lat pull down if you can't get that straight pull where you can actually activate. So my mind got going. We got this prototype. I actually went to an engineer and got some drawings done, and we designed a channel. That's when we came up with the universal channel. And when that first started, there was no UHMW. But we did send one of those to like Jake and to Adam and to Coop and got some feedback from those guys. And it was early on, and I had been talking to these guys because I've been a home gym guy for a long time. Yeah. And they were like, yeah, this is great. Here's the improvements that we make. So we introduced pretty much everybody's suggestion. And now we've got this.
Nice.
So something I thought we would sell, 250 of, we sold 3,000 in like 30 something countries now.
You've been busy.
Crazy. Yeah.
And that's, I mean, probably been a challenge in itself, the scaling of your company to, bring it up to where we are now, because
piece of cake.
You're making racks. You're making, your stealth spotter arms. I'm well versed in surplus strength thanks to seeing your booth at Home Gym Con, and happy to see you guys there and meet you in person. That was awesome. And next year you're coming back. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Heck yeah.
I heard we're going to be in good company next year. So
there's quite a list. I think Jake's like putting them in the stairwell at this point. Like the event room is filled up now. I mean, it's going to be a lot more full next year, but I don't think it'll feel crowded. Based off of all my conversations I've had with Jake about Home Gym Con. So I'm looking forward to seeing you guys again. And I mean, your company is full steam ahead, but this stands out to me. You're innovating all kinds of different things, but it was one of those moments that was very organic for me in my home gym that kind of led to this podcast and led to my YouTube channel, Vintage Weights PGH, that like, while I'm working out, while I'm training, I'm thinking, where the heck did this come from? Like what happened here? And long before even having the UPS, I had been thinking like, cable pulley, like who really thought of this? Like who really I know that in ancient times there were some primitive kind of like rope on a wheel. I know that there was this, but who applied it to fitness? So that's where I started digging in. And, there's some disagreement by historians over who actually invented the first exercise machine, let alone the first cable pulley machine. But through some research, I've got my own opinions, but we're going to go way back. We're going back before like Universal Gyms, back before Jack LaLanne, back before Arthur Jones and Nautilus. We're going back 100, 200 years ago. We're talking like a couple years after our country even started. And that's where we're going to begin. But we're going to begin with the folks that we defeated. So over in the United Kingdom, there's a man that we're going to start with that some historians, including myself, consider the first exercise machine. So give me a second. I'll pull up a picture here.
All right, there we go.
Oh, baby.
Gymnasticon.
Yeah. So I already painted kind of the historical context. It's 1797. So it's been about...
So he's doing
Go ahead.
A back and forth row, and he's got some foot pedals going on too.
Yeah.
On the second wheel. Okay.
He sure is. So he is, and he's doing his thing.
Is this inertial train? Is this like a flywheel?
Yep. Very
good. Wow.
That's exactly
pretty
what
high
it is.
tech, man.
You nailed it, Jason. So it's essentially it's the birth of like an exercise bike or flywheel,
This dude
and the
was
way the
living in
wheels are spinning there.
2053.
Yep.
Wow.
So that's Francis Lowndes. He's a British man and he's a physician. It's mainly for medical purposes. He's thinking through this whole thing. He just
Sure.
published a book about using electricity for curing diseases. So that shows he's an interesting character. And
Right.
he comes up with this machine, the Gymnasticon.
That's wild.
And it's some consider the first exercise machine because even though it's based in using it for medical purposes, he says in his own words and in his own writing that, quote unquote, it's invented to exercise the joints and muscles of the human body. So it's one of the earliest recorded instances where the inventor says that's the intended purpose is let's exercise
Right.
with this thing. You're not just going to rehabilitate, like we're going to build muscle. Now,
Fantastic.
not much resistance going on. So that brings us to our next machine. And this one hits a little closer to home for the purpose of this episode, which is the Pulley Machine. This was invented by an Italian man, James Chioso. So take a look at that, Jason, and tell me what you're seeing, what you think of that sucker.
I mean, it reminds me of what we would think of as like a functional trainer.
Mm-hmm.
Does it have a? Oh, I see. Okay, yeah. So just resistance bands, or is that actually like a weight stack in it?
There's a bit of a weight in it. Yeah, very good eye.
Okay.
I know that, it's
I
the
like the
images.
multiple grip and like cable positions.
Yep. Multiple
Reminds me of
positions.
everybody's favorite true form at the gym.
Oh, yeah. There you go.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like the ancient true form.
It's the ancient cable tower from 1831. Yeah.
Wow.
So he had like a pamphlet for it, which, as time would go on, that would become like, this is before TikTok and Instagram and all
Is
this
there
kind of
seat
crap.
at the bottom for like pullovers and stuff?
I believe so, because if you look about
Wow.
midway down, there's handles about midway.
Right.
So there's a whole series, and in this pamphlet, he kind of leads you through all these exercises, and he describes it, quote unquote, in his words, as an essential branch of popular education and an invaluable remedial agent in many forms of chronic disease. So it's still like medically based, but it offered way more resistance. You hit the nail on the head when it came to that. That this
I feel
is
like
where
this is something you'd
it's
see
like
at a
weights.
sanitarium.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So that's where we're getting closer. In my humble opinion, this is the first pulley machine.
This is American?
No, this one's Italian.
And
So
what
we went
year?
this was 1831.
Wow.
Yeah, so this is Italian, 1831. And still for hygienic and curative mediums is what it was advertised as. But you notice the weight there, that it's basically there's some resistance involved. So we're getting closer to like pulley machine action.
100%.
Now, this is where we get into the wild and weird. And this is that's why I took the time to put this man's face. I want you to remember this dude, Dr. Gustav Zender.
It's a good name.
Oh yeah.
It's
So
solid.
you may or may not have seen these kind of black and white photos, and viewers, you may not have seen them, but maybe you have. Like if you've ever seen like a really wild looking like old exercise machine, like maybe an influencer or someone posted something like, hey, look at what it used to be. Or maybe there's a meme of like this old machine and then look at modern machines. It probably was this guy's invention. So you've done really well so far, Jason. You're like 2 for 2. This is where the rubber meets the road, though, because Xander, whew, he he had quite an inventive mind. So here's the first one for you. See what you think of this little contraption.
Oh, wow. Sorry for getting my face in the camera, but this is
No, please do.
There's a lot going on here.
Well, I like to use men and women as kind of models with it. So there's a lady that's hooked up to this machine that's essentially behind her, but there's a foot pedestal that she's got kind of her feet on. And
Is this like a belt squat? Is she wearing a harness?
there is a harness looped up around her shoulders.
And I
And
see
then-
like some kind of weight in the back, it looks like, but there's also
Yeah.
like a there's some kind of flywheel on the back.
There is.
So maybe it gives you a little assistance, and then there's like a counterweight to reset it.
You're on the right track with noticing the harnesses, but those harnesses are actually for pulling back your shoulders. So it's described as, and this I'm quoting, by the way, these aren't my words. These are the words of Dr. Zander. In this elegant chest expanding machine, you can raise your pulse by increasing the flow of blood to the lungs. So I'm not a doctor, but that was his whole theory on it, was that if you're basically flexing back and forth, getting your shoulders pulled back and expanding your chest, you're going to get your...
So this is a machine that does something to you.
Yep.
Not the other way. Okay.
Not the other way around. You're just sitting there.
I wonder if somebody like cranks it up or something.
Well, this next
like
one,
static?
I believe the wheels on the back there, to the best of my recollection when I was reading about it, is where the action comes into play, and someone, like you said, cranks it up. This one does require you to do the work, though, and this one's been passed around online quite a bit.
Okay.
This is a gentleman with glasses, and he's seated here, and he's got some things on either side of him. What do you think this dude's up to?
I mean, this is a super complex isolateral bicep curl. I mean,
you got it.
You're joking. Is it that fancy?
It is 100% what it is. So you got it, man.
Look how well, I mean, from a functional standpoint, his joints are lined up with the pivot point. I mean, the grip is in the right place for his hand. It's a neutral grip. They did pretty good.
This one isn't too bad, right?
They nailed the important ones, but what is he sitting on?
I'm unclear to me. I think there might be a stool under him with the black and white and the different kind of like grays involved of the old photograph. It's hard to really see, but I think he's on a stool. I don't know whether that circular piece below him. Yeah, exactly. I don't know if that's just like ornate or a decoration, that circular thing below him. I'm not sure about that. But yeah, you got the right idea that there's counterweights on there, and it's a bicep training machine that has that ISO kind of unilateral movement.
Yeah, I wonder if they did that so that they could keep the resistance curve even through the entire movement, which is difficult to do in a bicep curl with a cantilever machine like this, right? You get a lot of leg extensions and stuff like that, and hamstring curl machines that have this problem, because you're using a short lever to pull.
Yeah.
And,
well, I mean,
interesting.
As I look at it, there's, let's see, 1, 2, 3.
As I nerd out on.
Yeah, I was going to say, well, if you're looking at
150-year-old equipment.
Yeah, there's like 4 different circular portions there. There's like, but the other thing I think about is this is the turn of the century.
There's cables strung through all of it.
Absolutely.
Which is interesting because it's still that one pivot with the single drop down as a counterbalance, it looks like. Well, I wonder how it's pulling on the other ones.
Arthur Jones, the inventor of Nautilus machines and all the big blue monsters, the big Nautilus machines with the chains and whatnot, and all the different movements that are pretty famous throughout the past I don't even know how long, 50 years. He called Zander a genius. He studied Zander and thought that Zander was a genius.
Well, I got to give him some props on the looks. I mean, that thing's all ornate and finished. It's nice.
Well, I got a couple more for you from Dr. Zander.
I've seen this one.
So this lady, we're back to the lady. And if you're noticing a trend, the lady doesn't have to do much. She's standing there. What's this thing doing to her?
It looks like it's causing her to pull back against it. So I think it's probably another scapular retraction. It appears that they want the women to be sturdy.
Yeah. What's that Joe Rogan quote?
They need to do some, carrying.
I like a girl that's sturdy. Yeah, Joe Rogan says something like that. I keep hearing a Joe Rogan quote.
Yeah, but it's totally got her legs locked in, so her legs aren't really doing anything. But I'd say this is going to do QLs and lats, right?
Yeah. Just about. I mean, I've got an advertisement for this one. The advertisement says, "Has the day at school left you a little tired and stiff? With a little torso stretching, you'll soon feel revitalized."
Shut up.
So yeah, you're right on there. Scapular, like torso stretching.
torso stretching, you're opening up the psoas, right? Lengthening those. So QL can kind of
Yep.
retract. Yeah.
Well,
It's funny how he was like tickling around stuff that's really real that we just are talking about in the last 20 years, from a fitness community standpoint. They were
sure.
What year was this one?
These are all Xander was like turn of the century, so like early 1900s.
Okay, so 20. Okay, that's cool.
Yep. So
Wow.
this is around the time in terms of fitness, like context. This is where the barbell is just kind of coming into form and things.
Sure.
So
Yeah, you like circus dumbbells and everything. Like they were hand weights, kettlebells, right?
Yep. So this is like when strongmen, Eugene Sandow, guys like that are coming about. And it's interesting to me to think of like even now there's still that kind of interplay between I love my barbells, but I also like a machine. And that's kind of happening here.
That's probably what happened to that submarine that sank. They're probably just down there working out on this thing, on the Titanic, right?
Man, my wife just told me about that last night, and this episode that we're recording won't come out for about a month. So, man, I hope when viewers listen to this, I hope whenever viewers view this, they're like, "Oh wow, they're talking about the thing where they rescued those people." So,
yes,
jeez. But yeah, that's
last I heard. They heard some knocking in 30-minute intervals, so that's good.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's not a bad sign. That's a sign of life. Because when my wife described it to me last night, I mean, I was tired at the end of the day, but I was getting like a little anxious. I'm not really. I wouldn't describe myself as claustrophobic, but I was thinking, oh boy, that doesn't sound great.
7 people in a minivan in the ocean.
No thanks.
Sound fun.
That's a hard pass.
yeah, no doubt.
But apparently it was $250,000, something like that. It was not cheap to go on that ride. So, yeah.
How much did this machine cost?
That's a good question. I couldn't dig up any.
Costs on anything?
No, I couldn't dig up any costs on Xander's stuff. So, listeners, viewers, if you know how much any of this cost back then, I promise you, I'll do the math to figure out like the modern day equivalent. If you just let me know in like 1903 how much a chest expander costed from Dr. Xander. What I can tell you,
have a gold one of these?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, he has a lot in that garage gym, so maybe. I know that these became very popular. Dr. Xander was in his machines spread out over 146 countries.
Wow.
So you were mentioning earlier how surplus strength has expanded. There was some scaling of Dr. Xander's business thanks to Dudley Sargent, a influential teacher at Harvard University that kind of helped bring him over to the United States, and then internationally they kind of took the world by storm in terms of his machines. So then this might be my favorite, and then we'll get to the one that actually directly connects to your UPS. Check out this little lifting bros here.
Okay, now there's a lot going on here.
There's a lot.
So let me unpack this for a second. Okay. He's got a stool. Okay, so I feel like he's trying to create intra-abdominal pressure, and the counterweight is the dude's legs.
Nice. So,
so he's like diaphragmatic, expansion.
Yeah.
Into that rod, and it looks like maybe it's pulling, and like it's a cantilever with that leather studded bench.
Yeah, he put a little fancy spin on it there.
Brass tacks or whatever.
One man is standing. He's got something on his like abdomen, and then the other man looks like he's just putting his feet up. He's just having like he's on a little short rest there. He's in between sets, and that and all of these people it look like they're about to go out to like the fanciest dinner of their lives. Like they are all like dressed to impress as they're working out.
Amazing.
So these two men, here's another advertisement. Are you nervous or do you struggle with constipation? You'll find that this vibrating massage machine will work wonders. That's what we got there, Jason. Dr. Xander's constipation relief machine.
So, what's funny is like this reminds me of a modern day, what is it called? The Myo Buddy?
Yeah.
Yeah, where like it's literally just meant to shake up your guts to make you poop better.
Pretty much.
I follow Ben Greenfield pretty closely, and he has all kinds of stuff like that.
Oh gosh.
It's funny. It's the same stuff.
Same stuff. You know, Dr. Xander, he had a 2-person thing going on here. But
good for him.
You were on the right track that there's pressure being applied by the man's legs, and then down below there's like a rod that's running horizontally down below that is then vibrating. I guess that's where the vibrations come from, that the pad is basically patting his tummy, which I know it sounds funny, patting his tummy, but like that's what I thought when I read through this one was, wait, this is a machine that basically is allowing a grown man to have someone pat his tummy. Like that's where we're at with Dr. Xander's machines. But here's the home run though. This is what we get to.
That would have been quite immoral back then, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's one thing to have a man put his legs up. But here we go. This is Dr. Xander's, pulley action.
That's pretty slick.
And it looks like a young boy kind of hanging out.
You see it almost looks like it's got marks to go wider or narrower at the top with the pulleys.
Yeah.
That is, wow. Look at that.
So there's like a kid sitting there, or a very childish looking man. I don't know. Maybe back in the turn of the century, that was what a young man looked like. So he's pulling on 2 different things. One is kind of like a rod over on the right, and then one is a handle, and you can see he's kind of pulling down the one, and the other one is up higher, and then they both connect to wheels up top, and they go over to his right down below to what looks like what he's sitting on. So my best interpretation on this one was that, it's he's benefiting from his own weight.
Right. So basically, as long as he keeps his hands in the same position, he does not move up or down. If he were to move one hand up while moving the other one down, he would stay in the same position, vice versa. So if he had one fully contracted, let one out, he would actually move himself because he's the weight.
You got it.
Yeah. So that's interesting because the length of that strap, the way you have the pulleys adjusted, like you could absolutely, play with someone's own body weight to cut it in half or make it appropriate for the exercise that you were prescribing. That's pretty interesting.
Well, that's where we go from, the first one I showed you that had a pulley-like system. That was the Pulley Machine in Italy, all the way up to here. It's been about, about 70 years. And we haven't traveled too far in terms of innovation, but we have traveled far in terms of acceptance of exercise. That 146 countries, that's pretty far reach, especially with no internet, no connectivity in terms of transport. You're sending stuff by ship. You don't have widespread air transit at that time, anything like that. So shipping
had better shipping rates than me.
Yeah. So it leads us into the 1900s and the time of what I mentioned before, Eugene Sandow, and this is the beginning of bodybuilding. He's the inventor of bodybuilding, most would say, and it leads us into just a ever-growing awareness of physical fitness. And this is the only thing I could find was Sandow or any of the like strongmen, if you will.
And let me point out something though.
Sure, go ahead.
The footprint of all this equipment has been substantial for the number of exercises it's able to do, right? Like none of these were multi-gyms, right? So that's a big footprint for what it is.
Really big.
They really had to want it,
Yeah, you needed to have a lot of constipation to really get that vibrating machine. Like you were having some severe problems in life that you were like,
have you ever been constipated? I mean,
like clear out the parlor, cancel tea time because we're bringing in the machine.
Well, now they just got a pill for that, right? So.
Well, actually, what they would do I said the parlor because most of these weren't in the home, if you will, even though this is home gym history. These were more like centers of physical wellness, things of that people would attend, and then they would say, okay, you need to you need to come over here and put this harness on, young lady, and we'll stretch out your torso for you. So I'm sure they said it much more elegantly. So here's my man, Eugene Sandow. And this is a postcard, but it shows him with the Sandow developer. And this was the closest thing to any type of pulley or any type of thing that resembled a pulley I could find with like the old time strongmen. And it's kind of like a combination between a pulley and bands.
Right.
I don't know why he's naked and this dude's staring at him, but he's working out in the nude apparently.
Early OnlyFans.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah. So he's obviously, but this is what's interesting to me, and this is nerdy as could be, but it looks like he's got dynamic resistance to the two anchor points, and then a pulley in between both handles, which Nice Like Mike just showed his cone to pulley setup, and I will tell you from a functional movement activation standpoint, that is one of the best solutions for that, to have it be able to pull differently in both hands and have to require the external rotation. That's fantastic. Way ahead of its time. It
was invented by someone other than Sandow. This Mr. Whiteley invented it, but then he co-sold it with Sandow. He went to the most popular guy.
This is France?
Eugene Sandow, well, he's got a long history, but he's throughout Europe, I guess you could say. Okay. And but this postcard, yes, is from France.
Where did the equipment come from?
On the bottom right of the postcard there, you can see Paris.
Yeah.
And then it led to, much like today, it became such a hit that there were lots of copycats and copycat devices by other physical culturists. But the concept of this one, like you described it, and you described it perfectly with the two different handles, was a hit. And this one was taken into the home. So this is where we see something that you pull and something similar to a pulley going into the home instead of being like a health center that you go to.
When I first saw it, I was like, oh, it's a crossover symmetry.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. And I mean, Sandow, he sold tons of stuff. Like he had like some wild stuff. He had a life-size doll that he marketed where children would pull at the hands of the doll.
Oh.
And then if you were exercising and pulling on the doll's hands sufficiently enough, you'd receive a treat, like a candy would fall out of the doll, which I guess was a little ironic since you're trying to promote health and then you're getting candy.
Yeah, I don't think that aged very well.
No, did not age well at all. So
I don't think people would appreciate that.
No, you rip off, you violently pull at the arms of a doll to get some candy. Yeah. Not going to go well. So, but he had tons of things like this. One of the most famous would be like his little like ringing dumbbells that basically you squeeze on them and so that you have tension while you're doing exercises. So they were very lightweight, but the whole point was to contract.
Okay. Sure.
Let me click out of the pictures here. I want to click the right button and not leave the entire call. Here we go.
So you can leave that up.
Yeah, we'll just stare at a half-naked Sandow the rest of the episode. There we go.
He's fully naked. That was not happening.
I guess our view of him, we don't want some weird rating from Spotify or Apple or any of the places this podcast goes. Suddenly there's a warning on here because of a postcard from 1908. So
you can get canceled for that type of thing,
Yeah, I'm trying to be careful, man. Yeah, I mean, things escalated quickly from there with systems like Jack LaLanne and
when did that start like getting popular? Like what years was that? Like when it really took off? Like where's the reformer in all this?
Oh, man,
look into that at all?
The reformer is in like from Pilates and things like that. Yeah. So I had Elaine. She came on and talked about the whole history of Joe Pilates and the reformer, and I had a whole episode on Pilates that I think is one of the most underrated episodes of mine. Like I
need to go back and watch it. I haven't heard it.
Well, some people were like, "Wait a minute, it's home gym history. Why are you talking about Pilates?" But I thought it was enthralling. Like Joe Pilates was a character too. Like he was quite a wild dude. So it was interesting from that perspective. But yeah, so that all comes about much after Jack LaLanne, and we've got Arthur Jones, who I mentioned, who invented Nautilus. Arthur Jones, he's a World War II veteran. He was in the U.S. Navy during World War II. He had a crazy wildlife. He like flew planes in Africa on these like wildlife programs, transporting exotic animals. And that was all before he was like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to invent some exercise machines. So
in his spare time, right?
Exactly. So yeah, he had a pretty crazy life. He produced movies, and but then his Nautilus machines, they relied on chains and cams and sprockets, and that ensured that the tension was placed on the muscle rather than, partially. His whole kind of mindset was the entirety of the rep, to have it from like start to finish. You've got tension because of the way he set up his machines.
Those cams where those chains could roll over in just a way that it mimicked the exact, resistance of that muscle. Yeah, brilliant. Changed everything.
And Nautilus is still in business today. And, I took a peek
some of their
at their
old
website.
Equipment. You see like some of their old machines. Like I see them not all the time, because most of the time people like snatch them up, but you can catch them on Facebook Marketplace and they're still taking high dollar, and they're usually in good working order because people take good care of them because they know what they are,
Yeah. And it's metal. I mean, if you take care of it, it's not going to break, and it's a chain. So if it does break, you can repair a chain. So I just posted a couple machines over the last week, just saying like there's this one chest fly machine that was here in Pittsburgh for $200, and I was like, oh my gosh, like I wish I had a bigger gym. Like this old Nautilus machine was so cool, and it was only $200, and I was thinking, man,
the Pack Deck.
Yeah. And I mean, you could see like just the wild, like kind of padding and different things, and you could use it for multiple kind of exercises and movements. And that, you kind of talked about that when you're saying like the footprint of these were huge. Well, Universal, I would be remiss if I didn't mention Universal Machines. That was kind of like their take in the 60s through the 70s, was that we're going to have like a series of machines that you could go through your whole workout. You can have this universal machine. And those have not aged well in terms of a resale price. I see like those multi-machine kind of monstrosities all the time listed. So that's, they were big. And same with Nautilus machines are big too. But that's where I'm going with this is, you brought it down to this small component relatively that fits on my rack and fit in a tight space, because my rack is 90 inches and the uprights have to go a couple inches into the rafters of my basement. Like I had to perfectly position my rack so that the uprights perfectly went up into the rafters in my basement gym.
You're a dweller.
Oh yeah. 100%.
Well, I'm glad I wore a friendly shirt.
That's right. Basement Brandon. Bar don't lie. So then the UPS, awesome. I did all the measurements.
And that was an unintended consequence. I didn't even think about that. I got 14-foot ceilings in my own gym.
Yeah, you're living.
Seriously,
garage life.
Like that was one of those things that it just worked out, which I call a God thing. It just seemed to make sense. But the slinger and those solutions wouldn't be a thing for you, right? Like you couldn't even consider that.
Not at all, because I mean, even as I'm looking up over my shoulder, there's legit like maybe 1.5 inches of space between one of the cross beams and of my ceiling and the UPS.
So you removed the cross member, you mounted the UPS, and then remounted your cross member.
You got it.
Yeah.
So
that's the hack, man. I mean, for guys that don't have the space.
But now I have a functional pulley that I can use in my rack, and all is well. I'm not hitting myself in the shins anymore, so we're good.
Do you have a UPS low?
I don't. I'm working that out still because, and viewers, if you don't know, so the UPS, there's two components. There's the UPS high, that's what I have, and that's what you see the prototype of and what's up over Jason's shoulder in the video here. But then the UPS low allows for like low rows and different things of that nature. And my problem is, since I have mine on the side of my rack and I work out, if you will, in my rack, because my gym is small. Like I mean, I can load plates on my barbell. That's about all I can do on the outside of my rack.
Sure.
So since I'm on the inside of my rack, I have to sit like on my lower cross member of my rack on the opposing side.
Terrible, honestly. That's not a terrible solution.
Yeah.
And,
but once I add the length of the UPS low, I was like, wait, I don't know. Like I might be past that.
You're tall.
Yeah.
So sand dunes might help with that, or something like that, like a small box if you set it behind the crossover. We've had a couple guys that have pulled that off pretty well. But
my cheap Amazon ones, I kind of hooked up to play around with some ideas. So I took like my ab mat and I sat it on there so I wasn't breaking
my
butt.
honestly, that's actually a really good solution for those Amazon pulleys. You know, you can play around with that.
I was like Dr. Xander over here. I was just hooking stuff up.
Well, the foot plate pushes you back another 10 inches on the UPS low, by design, so that you can get a grip, on that side of your feet. So that so you actually get a full pull, in the scapula. But I'm sure you could come up with something that would totally work.
Well, what I was thinking through was, how can I position it how can I hook it up so the UPS low is higher? And then I could make myself like a little bench to sit higher. Yeah, like above the cross member.
Easy.
So
you want to hear my solution?
Yeah.
Stealth spotters.
Okay.
You mount the stealth spotter upside down.
All right.
UPS
and then hook it up.
It's optimized because there's no gusset.
Okay.
So we did this on purpose. Can I show this off? Is this a good time?
Yeah, please do.
I just happen to have a stealth spotter back here. Imagine that.
Look at that.
So the stealth spotter, because there's no gusset right here and there's no plastic on the bottom, it's just like a 3x3 tube. So UPS, anything, if you have a dip attachment from mute metals, it'll all just fit right there, just like it would a 3x3 tube.
Okay.
So you just mount this bad boy upside down and go to town.
Not bad.
Do you have a 1-inch rack?
So, no, I do not, sir.
Oh.
No, I do not.
Okay. So,
I was short-sighted.
Drop-in safety would be the next best thing.
You said that with such a pitiful tone, like drop-in safety.
Oh no, damn. We wanted to do these stealth spotters for 5/8 guys. I'll make this quick. But your rack only has holes on the side of the upright every 12 inches maybe? Yeah,
it's a rogue rack, so
it's a big spacing though.
Yeah.
And Rep started doing their 5/8 racks, some of their 5/8 racks like fully hold on the side than the front.
Okay.
And if more manufacturers follow suit, we may come out with a 5/8 version. But right now, it just doesn't make sense. If you can only move that spotter up every 12 inches, it's kind of rough.
Fortunately, I only have 2 attachments for my rack. I've got a UPS and I've got a drink spotter. So
Good company.
Yeah.
Nice.
So fortunately, both of those will work if I do eventually swap out and get a 1-inch
rack.
Right. Both my attachments can transfer over. I'll hit up Tanner and Tommy and be like, guys, I need the 1-inch post for my drink spotter. And then
boom.
My UPS, I don't have to do anything. It'll be fine. So
we'll send you some new speed pins on
Yeah, speed pins. That's all I'll need. So, and that's worth mentioning. We'll have a little mention of the drink spotter behind Jason as well. Yeah. So, looking forward, you came along with all of this. I asked you at Home Gym Con. You were part of the Inventors Roundtable, and listeners, if you haven't listened to that, that was a surprise to me. Like, I didn't know I was even doing that until like 20 minutes before it happened. And then I hopped up there on stage. I was like, "Hey, let's talk about inventing things." But
day 3 of the convention too, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it'd been a great weekend, but a long weekend.
Good weekend.
So then it ended up being like one of my favorite things because you and Patrick from Bridge Build, and then we had Dylan from AbMat, we had Steve Cleva was up there. Am I forgetting anyone? I don't think so. So, yeah, it was a great conversation. I asked all of you, hey, what's next? What's on the horizon? Well, I mean, it's only been like a couple months. I don't want to ask the same thing again. So what I will ask is just on a bigger picture, where do you see, I asked earlier, like the scaling of things, but in terms of you and the way your company's working out with your family, I know your family means a lot to you. How are things going right now? Because this is home gym history. You're sitting in a garage here. So, tell me how things are going in terms of the company and your family, and how, you see things going forward in terms of scaling the company up, because surplus strength has been just kind of like exploding the past year, in my opinion.
Appreciate that. We did a lot of growth early on, and we've kind of taken some time now that we've got a core line of products like out in the market that we can kind of mainstream and streamline, I should say. And we want to focus on those products and the delivery that's direct to consumer. And at the same time, we kind of want to take a step back, work on some important, manufacturing partnerships that we've got, and kind of take that turn towards doing more institutional and B2B sales. So that's what we're really focused on right now. I've been hitting the local high schools here in Nashville pretty hard. So we're starting to bid out some rooms here locally. You're going to see a lot more custom build outs from us. That's why you really don't see too many ARC series racks going out right now, because everything's going to be custom to quote. We just don't really see, we don't see a lot of upside to trying to stand up to Rogue and Rep in the, box rack market. And it's just not something we're interested in. We're a different product. I think people who find value in us, they find us. And we're really grateful for everybody who is that person and allows us to make amazing, pieces of art that are meaningful to people. That I get kind of emotional just thinking about it, like Kurt's rack, the first one we did custom was just like, I still, Kurt and I are like very dear friends. And it's different when you get to go through that process with somebody and they take a lot of pride in it. And, not everybody gets to pick their customers, and we don't necessarily get to pick our customers, but man, the customers that pick us, we just won the lottery. So that, and the fact that I do get to feed my family and have time to, I took off from the warehouse early today and took my son to open skate. He plays
nice
hockey, stuff like that is, I'll never get that time back with my 6-year-old. Right. So it's very special, and we take it seriously,
Okay.
As far as like new products and innovations, we got a couple little things. We're going to focus on some more attachment type pieces, low hanging fruit, under $200 items, not, the big bougie stuff that we've been kind of putting out. Different takes on stuff that probably exists. Nothing's going to blow anybody's mind. But we've got some fun things in store.
That's cool.
We just built a 10-foot tall, 400-pound stack, 1-to-1 ratio, lat pull down low row for Southside Strength.
Oh my gosh!
So those monsters over there can lift on it.
10-foot tall.
It's enormous.
Have you dropped a picture of that on your Instagram?
I did actually. I had it in a story. I'll have to do a reel about it.
Because the algorithm betrays me. Like I miss stuff, and I'm like, wait, like I posts all the time by this person. How in the world did I miss this? So yeah, I don't know how it works.
Big. We drew it, and I had the guy stand up, and like Tyler that works with us. He's like 6'5", Evan 6'5". These are big men. Yeah. So we had them do their reach, and like, well, I did the math, and then I had Chris from Surplus Strength, from Belt Fed Strength. Sorry, it's getting late.
Yeah.
He made a leader strap for it for us normal sized people, so that we can have an 18-inch leader, so we can put attachments on it. But AdMat did the mat on it. So again, it's just cool to work with all the friends, that we get to work with on a regular basis, to see those things come to life.
Yeah.
And as we fill out, more institutional rooms, you're going to see barbell rescue in there. You're going to see breath belts in there. You'll see belt fed strength in there. All the what we consider to be best in class. That's kind of who we want to party with.
Heck yeah. And I mean, the stuff you're talking about as far as smaller items, low-hanging fruit, stuff like that, I was just mentioning on a previous episode to this one, Sean from a British company, Raw Form Functional Fit is the name of it, that he started. He makes like custom maces and really wild stuff. Like he has this like 6 foot like sword he swings around, like he set stuff on fire. He was just juggling like these steel balls that were on fire the other day. But yeah, so he makes these like custom pieces, like this shield that you swing around, that are expensive because he's like a metal artist in addition to making this.
Right.
But so he was saying, I'm gonna make these like vertical lift kind of grip implements that are just going to be 15 pounds. And, that's because people want something a little cheaper. But I pointed out to him, and the reason I bring it up is that, I've been wanting to buy one of his pieces for a while, but it's the kind of thing you got to save your money for. But, someone who buys that low hanging fruit, they might be that person who's just not ready yet to buy that custom rack or buy that UPS or whatever it might be, that then is saving their money, and they're going to pick it up down the road and be impressed with that small item. So it might work out the same with surplus strength with some of the smaller stuff you might roll out. You don't know.
I hope so.
But I like all the people you named at your party. I know that much.
Oh man, and there's more. I mean, Haddock Designs, Clever Built.
Heck yeah.
They all have Pepin dumbbells. The gym is pretty much representative of who we like to work with in here.
Yeah. Well, that's my last question for you.
There's Mutant Metals right behind me too.
Yeah, I'm so happy he's coming. I said that during our Inventors Roundtable that like next year I want to see Mutant Metals. I want to see him come out. So I'm so happy he's coming next year. I'll be tracking him down to talk with him and look at some of his stuff. Such a cool company. So my last question for you is, it's home gym history. I'd be weird if I didn't ask you about your home gym history. So to end out, what's your home gym history? Like, where did what's the first time you worked out at home? You said you did when you were a trainer. You took this money in 2019 and you said, I'm going to turn my garage into what it is now. But prior to that, I'm talking like as a kid or whenever it is you started in your life.
We got a couple minutes?
Yeah, we got as much time as you want, man.
So Dad brought home a 1-inch standard concrete weight set,
nice.
Beater, multi-bench from Walmart when I must have been 11 or 12. So we're talking like 94. The heyday of like, you bring home this plastic casing, you pour the freaking water in the weight, then you put the cap on, right? Just to cut down on weight. And the bar, I guess it was knurled, but it had like a clear coat. It was like almost painted.
Jeez.
And it was threaded with the big star.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, the whole thing. And it had the leg extension on it with the crappy foam.
Yeah.
I'm being really good. I don't think I've cursed yet on your podcast.
You're allowed to. It's okay. We were just showing Eugene Sando. Anything goes here.
My military vocabulary gets me.
Yeah.
So I had all that in my bedroom with a twin bed, a chest of drawers,
nice.
and a desk. Bro, like it was so dangerous. I'd wake up and like almost poke my eye out. But where the J cups were like right here.
Oh yeah, like tight.
Right? Like they're next to your head, so you're outside.
Yeah. Where if you put like 1 pound too much, it's gonna flip the bar over.
Sure. And this was because I was fat growing up.
Okay.
I was overweight, had self-esteem issues. And I wanted to be bigger and stronger, right? And then what really carried me through for a lot of years, probably like, I don't know, I had a pull-up bar in my doorway for like 20 years. So I was like, I mean, even when I got married, like I had one in our closet until my wife made me take it down. I just love pull-ups,
Yeah.
pull-ups and push-ups. Like that was just always my thing. So, gosh, I think when I left my parents' house, you know, I worked out in high school, right? We had a dungeon basement gym in high school. You'd appreciate that. And, so I didn't really home gym in high school that much, college either, Army, came home. I probably started this one in like 2016, I want to say.
Yeah.
You know, and I was racing mountain bikes really heavy, so it looked a little different. You know, it was a TRX, a place to do mobility, kettlebells. I had eye hooks on the wall to do like all my bands, so I could do actually like, you know, resistance.
Yeah.
Just had three eye hook positions. It looked like one of those machines I showed a picture of earlier.
Look at you.
And then I had a really nice trainer set up though, like TV screen to run Swift, and I was running, you know, 100 something miles a week and racing all over the Southeast. So that was kind of my focus. But what really got me back into training, because when I came out of the Army, I became a personal trainer because I was disabled vet, you know, busted knee. I kind of felt broken. I was 21, so I got into fitness. I got back into fitness after I wrecked a mountain bike and broke 6 vertebrae and separated my shoulder and collapsed my lung and broke my rib. And I wanted to put myself back together so I could race again.
Yeah.
And in that journey, I learned enough that I was like, man, okay, this is my calling. You know, I was working a white collar job at the hospital. You know, I was in high tech healthcare, and I came home and told my wife, I was like, "Hey, babe, I think I'm gonna start training people in the garage." You know, and I'm gonna quit my 6-figure job, full benefit.
Oh,
she's like, okay, that's great.
Yeah.
And I started training people in the garage. I took a part-time job to do it, and it's the best decision I ever made.
So did you go and get, you know, the certifications, all that kind of stuff to
so when I was
trainer?
22, I got my personal training certification.
Okay.
And then that was through the Aerobics and Fitness Association of America. I came back in 2018 and went through the National Academy of Sports Medicine, which was
awesome.
That was a big test.
Yeah, that's nothing to downplay at all. And that's part of the reason I knew you'd be great for this episode, was that I knew you were a trainer prior to having surplus strength. And so I thought, all right, I can show him these wacky things and he can break it down. And you did a great job with all of them, kind of like breaking down how they work. And, you know, and
I was a personal trainer in Nashville, and then I moved back to Kansas for a little while. I did personal training out there, and the gym scene was very different.
Yeah. And I can imagine.
So I worked at like a Jewish community center here. So it was a good mix of people, young and old, but you know, there were no bodybuilders in there. Like some dudes were buff or whatever, but dude, like in Kansas, it was like a straight bodybuilding gym, you know, so like they had an H squat in there.
Oh, wow.
You know, like crazy hammer. Oh, whole different scene. So, but it was just like, I was like, holy shit.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I kind of have seen a lot of stuff. I started working in the gym at the JCC when I was like 15 years old, washing towels. So I've been around equipment and the gym scene like forever. And it's so funny because I was 39 when I really found out what I had been hanging around all this gym equipment for. Really meant, you know,
it's all started to add up after a while.
It's great, man. I wasn't ready for it before, so.
Right. And compliments to your wife. It takes a steady partner to hear that kind of news that like, wait, you're going to switch things up here. What's going on? So,
it worked out okay for everybody.
Yeah. I mean, it's going well now. And am I correct if listening to you?
I filled my books in like 6 months.
Awesome.
I mean, I replaced my income in 6 months.
Yeah.
Because people believed in what and people believed in what I was doing, and that's the whole reason we were going to move to open a commercial gym, because you know I had like a wall folding rack and half the floor was rubber, but my wife still parked her car in here at night. And there was no air conditioning, and you know we still got the job done. Don't get me wrong, but
Yeah.
It had a ways to go, and obviously, I mean, now it's freaking awesome.
Yeah. Well, that was what I was going to say. It was from listening to you here tonight. It sounds like you didn't see surplus strength coming down the road. It just, that's the way things happen coming through from what you were doing. So am I correct in that? Or did you have that in the back of your mind that, you know what, I'm going to invent some stuff. I'm going to produce some equipment.
Are you familiar with Inky Johnson?
No.
So Inky Johnson played for the University of Tennessee. He was headed to the NFLs. All he ever wanted to do his entire life. One play, hit him in the neck, killed his entire right side. Arm just went limp. Rubber band.
Okay.
Ended everything. He gives a speech, and he talks about putting limits on what God has for our life. And he says, I thought God had limited me to an NFL career, like that. And he took that away, right? But I was putting limits on God because what I have now is so much greater. And so, like, when I gave, my life to Jesus Christ in 2014, got baptized, I kind of like surrendered everything. And so, like, everything moving forward has just been like, what's next for me? What do you have next for me? And if I'm being honest, this last season has been a season of labor. This has been 3 hard years, man. I have been on the grind.
Heck yeah.
I still train clients. I still make boxes. I swept the floor today, and I'm grateful for every bit of that. And so that I don't know what's next, man. I hope it's good.
That's the way I'm taking this adventure.
Yeah.
I didn't know I'd be having a podcast or doing any of this stuff. Yeah. It's
like I knew surplus strength was there. I didn't know it was surplus strength. I knew he had me here for a reason because, I never deserved to be saved, but I was.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he's got me here for a reason. So, I just continue to be open to the next opportunity, and challenges look a lot like opportunities to get stronger and overcome to me. So that's just my outlook on life.
Hey, I hear you, man. It makes sense to me. And I appreciate your time and appreciate time in general. So you're a busy man. I appreciate you coming on tonight, Jason, and, sharing some of your thoughts on these things and some of your background. And
that was fun.
I'm looking forward to next year's Home Gym Con already, but who knows? Maybe I'll see you before then. I'll be keeping up with what you're up to online and all the other ways we do nowadays. We don't have to go by boat or ship like Dr. Xander sent his stuff everywhere. So I'll be keeping up with you, man, and thanks for coming on.
Rob, thank you so much, man. I appreciate you having me.
Absolutely. Hey, viewers, listeners, please help us out. The best way to support us is by following us on your choice of podcasting platforms, whether that's Spotify, YouTube, Apple, wherever you might be listening to this. Please follow us and then drop a comment. Let us know what you think of these pulley systems throughout history. Have you ever seen these before? What do you think of the UPS? Have you seen the Universal Pulley System from Surplus Strength? Thanks for tuning in. This is Rob, Home Gym History.